Quarterfinals played. As usual, Mark Haskins is here for the post-match analysis. Mark, hello and welcome.
Morning, Kendall.
Mark, the Brazilian team seems to have come to the party last night.
They definitely did. After some, less than inspiring performances in their opening games, they really came to the party and they knew exactly what they wanted to do, and they played really well. I think they were well worth their victory last night.
Now, one could tell how much this match meant to the Colombians. They seemed a little less polished. In fact, they seemed to be playing more with their hearts than the skill that we've come to see them play with.
I think, like we said prior to this game, I don't think they'd really been tested, and I think last night Brazil really put them to the sword. I think the fact that it was their first time playing in a quarterfinal at the World Cup also had a role to play. Brazil, at the end of the day, are still Brazil, and they've been there before. Even though they haven't been performing well, the country as a whole knows how to handle the pressure, and their players knew exactly what was expected of them. I think the experience in the Confederations Cup played a big role as well. And so this team really pulled together and did really well.
Mark, what would you say the difference was between this performance last night and what Brazil had been doing throughout the competition, just barely scraping through win after win?
I think we were saying, the fact that they weren't playing well, but they were still able to win games was a big plus for them, because the day that things clicked, whoever they played against was going to be in trouble, because to be able to win and not play well, like we've said continuously, that's a mark of a champion, and that's what they've done really well. So last night things clicked a bit for them, and I think some of the co-stars of the team kind of stepped up. A guy like Hulk had one of his better games. He looked in the mood, and then your David Luiz, Thiago Silva, all these guys around Neymar, who's basically the star of the team, they all stood up, and that's why they looked a much more solid outfit.
Now, Brazil's going into this particular semi-final with a couple of casualties.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing. I mean, there's two major losses for Brazil. The fact that Neymar won't be there, and their inspirational leader, Thiago Silva, who picked up his second yellow, he's going to be missing from the semi-final. So I think that might even be a bigger loss than the loss of Neymar. Even though Neymar, their go-to guy up front, but the leader of the team, you just see, he inspires them. The way he wears his heart on his sleeve, he covers every blade of grass. He makes sure that every tackle, he's there, and that's big for them. The way he screams, the way he commands the players, that is going to be sorely missed in the semi-final.
Right, now, let's go a little bit to the other quarterfinal that was played a little earlier in the evening, France-Germany. It never really lived up to its billing, did it?
Yeah, we expected fireworks from that game, and unfortunately, I think the weather played a big role in the game. I think the conditions was not conducive to two European teams playing a good brand of football, because both teams seemed a bit lethargic. And I think it's purely due to the heat, and obviously they're not used to playing in that kind of conditions, and so the intensity of the game never really got up to what we expected it to be. And unfortunately, on the side of the French, they never really looked like they were going to come on the day that they would rise to the occasion.
Would this not have been the perfect opportunity to try out that water break after the 30-minute mark again?
Definitely, but ultimately, even though when you have a water break, we were talking about the intensity during the game, getting up and down the field. We generally see that from their players are able to play box to box. But in those conditions, you're limited, and you're not allowed to express yourself like that, because you have to now pace yourself. Whereas when you're playing under cooler conditions, you don't have to pace yourself as much, because if you don't pace yourself, you'll last literally just an hour, and then you'll be flat, and then you're no good for the last 30 minutes. And that, for me, played a major role in the game being a bit of a dull affair.
Mark, there are two things that stood out for me in terms of last night's match, and let's touch on the first one. It was the night of the defender, wasn't it? I mean, the goals.
Definitely, if you look at it in the Germany-France game, Hummels scoring the decisive goal, and then obviously the Brazil-Colombia, Thiago Silva and David Luiz getting the two goals that send Brazil through. So definitely a night of the defenders, and it just shows how the game has evolved, that you can get goals from anywhere. Goals are not just expected from strikers anymore. Everyone on the field is expected to at least get in and amongst the goals.
Now, Zuniga was actually one of the other defenders who was key in this particular match, with that knee in Neymar's back, fracturing vertebrae. One of the things that he said after the match was that he was playing for his shirt, which gives one the idea that he was trying to get retribution for the niggles that had been happening during that match.
It was. I mean, obviously, I think in both games, if you look at the tackles and the fouls that were made, I think on the parts of Brazil and Germany, they literally, you could see the experience there because they made fouls in the right areas, and you could see the experience because you call them professional fouls because you need to know when to foul and when not to. And Brazil and Germany did that in the right areas. Even if you look at like against with France, Schweinsteiger got a yellow card, but it was when Griezmann was breaking through, and Griezmann was he was looked like he was going to go through on goal, and Schweinsteiger, he took the yellow because he knew that was a dangerous situation. And I think that was the difference on the night. The experience of Germany and Brazil, even when it came to fouling in the right areas and that kind of thing, that's made the difference.
All right, now having said that, that's my other thing about the match. The referees seem to be quite important because one of the things that some commentators have said about the Brazil-Colombia match, for example, was there were over 40 fouls of those professional fouls that you just mentioned before the first yellow card was produced, that he didn't take charge of the game right from the word go.
I think he tried to make the game flow, and that's, as soon as you start producing too many cards, it kills the flow of the game because ultimately, if he has to be consistent with those cards. If he gives a foul for something what we would deem soft, the next soft foul he would have to give another card, and at the end of the day, how many cards is he going to hand out? And then it's red cards come into play, and that'll spoil the game as a spectacle, I think. I don't think he did a bad... I think he did a good job because there was nothing malicious until maybe towards the end. And I think when he needed to, he produced the card.
No, fair enough, Mark. I do remember watching the match, screaming a lot about the refereeing, and I was quite upset when James Rodriguez just kept niggled and kicked, but he was actually marked out of the match. Did Colombia play their hand too soon in their match against Uruguay? And coming into the match, Brazil already knew what kind of game plan that these guys had. Mark this man out of the game, and then James Rodriguez is literally almost a nobody for most of the match.
I don't think you can say they played their hand too early because, I mean, they reached the second round and they were bidding for place in the quarterfinal the first time in their history. So they had to play all their cards because they needed to, go beyond their best. And they've done that. And I think that's the difference in the end. I think the occasion, being in the quarterfinal for the first time, Brazil had been there before. And even though this current crop of Brazilian players may not have been there as a team, but this is Brazil we're talking about, and Brazil knows what it is to get to semifinals, to get to finals, and that ultimately is the difference in the end. Doesn't matter who they play against, Brazil is Brazil. Even when they're playing bad, when they rise to the occasion, they are still Brazil and are going to play well.
Mark, in about 20, 30 seconds or so, can you tell us, in the battle of number 10s last night, because that was one of the big talking points coming into this match, James Rodriguez against Neymar Jr., who won?
I wouldn't say either one won. I would say it's probably a tie. But for me, the big thing from last night, the co-stars are the ones who stood up. The players around the number 10s, because so much focus was on the number 10s that you needed other guys around them to step up. And I think, especially on the parts of Brazil, that's exactly what happened. And we said from the beginning that if Brazil want to go deep into this tournament, they are going to need their co-stars to stand up and play a major role.
Right. Thank you, Mark. Now let's see what the views are out there. Some tweets, social media, see what people are saying about these two matches, about Neymar's injury as well. They're going to come up just now, and then we'll see what's being said. Let me see. We've got Fred, who's got to be the worst striker in the World Cup. That's Mark Kilkenny saying that. And Luke Davies says, Brazil have got every ref at this World Cup in their pocket, mate. What do you think about that, Chief? I agree.
Home ground advantage is always going to count. The 50-50 decisions are always going to go to the home team. So I don't think they've got exceptionally, the refs have been exceptionally bad where there's been outright favoritism. Because if you look in the game against Brazil and Chile, I think Howard Webb was exceptional in handling that game, and I don't think there was favoritism.
Interesting enough, though, Luis Felipe Scolari has been saying that the referees are against his team, and I think he does protest too much, though, Mark. Jared Lee Moses, he says, I predict Brazil to win the World Cup. That's a very strong prediction there. After Colombia's out, I might have to agree with you. After such high standards on Brazilian women, I have such high standards on Brazilian women because of this World Cup. Connor H. All right, we know where your focus is, Connor. Kev says, sad to see Rodriguez and Neymar both out of the World Cup. Now, two great talents. James had the better tournament, Brazil, Colombia. What do you think about that, Tom?
Well, he is, if you're going to judge him purely on maybe the goals. I mean, he's got 6 goals now. Neymar can't catch him because his World Cup is over. So he maybe did. He is the standout player of this World Cup thus far.
Right. Now, Arcelesao says, laugh out loud, we're the friends of Colombia. That's kicking a man when he's down. That's not cool. That's not cool at all.
I think ultimately Colombia will still be proud of their performance. Even though they've gone out, they've gone better than their best. It's their first time getting to the quarterfinal.
Yes.
And this is a young team that they can still take into the future as well. So Colombia, there's a lot of good on the horizon for them, I think.
Mark, thank you. Very good, and always inspirational stuff that you say to us. Please don't make any predictions just yet, because we will be talking about the preview coming up in the next hour.
Thank you, sir.
Alrighty, that was Mark Haskins. Now, after inspiring his team to reach the last 4 of the World Cup, as you just heard, Brazil's poster boy Neymar